Emily Carter, a journalist with a penchant for the unexplained, found herself drawn to the sleepy town of Fairview, a place haunted by a past it desperately wanted to forget. Her destination was Harrington Hall, an imposing structure that had stood silent and desolate since a horrifying incident in 1963, an event the locals simply called the Night of Silence. For Emily, who had built a career on chasing the ghosts of unsolved mysteries, the hall was an irresistible siren's call, a story begging to be told. But the residents of Fairview were not eager to share. They spoke in hushed tones, their eyes filled with a deep-seated dread, warning her that the hall was far from empty. They insisted that something lingered within its decaying walls, a presence that had claimed the building as its own. The most vehement warnings came from Sheriff Dalton, a man whose face was a roadmap of weary resignation. He was the last living witness to the terror that had unfolded 6 decades prior, and the memory was a wound that had never healed. He confronted Emily outside the rusted gates of the estate, his voice a low, urgent plea. He implored her to leave, to turn her car around and never look back. He spoke of an entity, a malevolent force known only as the Whisperer, which he swore still roamed the long, shadowed corridors of Harrington Hall. He described it not as a ghost, but as a predator, an ancient evil that had been disturbed that fateful night and had been waiting patiently ever since. Emily listened, her journalistic instincts tingling, but the sheriff's fear only served to steel her resolve. The greater the mystery, the more compelling the story. The warnings of the townspeople and the desperate pleas of the old sheriff were not a deterrent. They were an invitation. Ignoring the chorus of caution, Emily waited for the cloak of night to fall over Fairview. Under the pale light of a sliver moon, she slipped past the crumbling stone walls and found a way into the abandoned hall. The air inside was thick and stagnant, heavy with the scent of dust and decay. Her flashlight beam cut a nervous path through the oppressive darkness, revealing the skeletal remains of a once grand ballroom. A vast, dark chamber stretched before her, its high ceilings lost in shadow. As she stepped onto the warped floorboards, a sound pricked her ears faint at first, then growing clearer. It was music, a ghostly waltz echoing from an era long past. Laughter, light and carefree, seemed to bubble up from the very walls, and the soft scuff of dancing shoes accompanied the phantom orchestra. She was alone, yet the room felt impossibly crowded. Her gaze was drawn to the far end of the hall, where a colossal, gilt-framed mirror stood, its surface clouded with age. As she moved closer, her own reflection wavered, and behind it, other figures began to materialize. She saw the spectral images of a crowd from 60 years ago, men in sharp suits and women in elegant gowns, swirling in a timeless dance, their faces frozen in moments of joy, oblivious to their impending doom. They were ghosts trapped in glass, a silent testament to the night everyone vanished. Then the whispering began. It was a sibilant, insidious sound that slithered into her ears from all directions at once. It called her name, Emily, the sound wrapping around her like a cold shroud. The voice was ancient and intelligent, and it knew her. It didn't just speak her name. It burrowed into her mind, unearthing her deepest, most primal fear, a suffocating terror of vast, empty, dark spaces. The grand hall, once filled with phantom dancers, suddenly felt like an infinite, hungry void, and she was at its center. Just as the crushing weight of the darkness threatened to consume her, the main doors burst open, and a powerful beam of light sliced through the gloom. Sheriff Dalton stood silhouetted in the doorway, his face grim. He had followed her, a premonition of disaster driving him back to the place he had avoided for a lifetime. Rushing to her side, he pulled her back from the mesmerizing mirror and, in a torrent of frantic words, finally revealed the whole truth of the Night of Silence. He explained that on that night in 1963, the hall had been alive with the town's most prominent citizens, celebrating a local festival. The party was in full swing when a strange, unassuming man walked into the ballroom. He wasn't from Fairview. No one had ever seen him before. He stood in the center of the room, and in a calm, clear voice that carried over the music, he said, "You have no idea what you are standing above." In the instant that followed, every single person in the hall, the musicians, the dancers, the staff, vanished. They didn't scream, they didn't run. They were simply gone, erased from existence. Only Dalton, a young boy hiding in the kitchens, was spared. The hall wasn't merely haunted by the spirits of those who disappeared, he explained, his voice trembling with the 60-year-old memory. It was something far worse. The hall wasn't empty, it was hungry. The entity, the whisper, wasn't a ghost. It was the house itself, or rather, the ancient thing that slept beneath it. The man's words had been a warning, a final futile gesture before the entity awoke and fed. The whispering Emily heard was the lure it used, a psychic tendril that latched onto a person's fear and used it to draw them in. Dalton grabbed Emily's arm, pulling her toward the exit as the whispers grew louder, more insistent, promising to swallow her in the sweet oblivion of her own personal darkness. They stumbled out into the cool night air, the heavy doors of Harrington Hall slamming shut behind them with a definitive bone-jarring thud. Emily escaped, her heart hammering against her ribs, but her journalistic instincts had not failed her. Her camera, which had been recording the entire time, had captured the final chilling message from the entity as the doors closed. Later, in the sterile safety of her hotel room, she played back the footage. The screen was black, but the audio was terrifyingly clear. Amidst the static, a sibilant, multi-layered voice, the voice of the whisperer, hissed a final, parting threat. The hall remembers your fear. A cold dread, colder than anything she had felt inside the mansion, settled over her. The entity knew her weakness, and it had marked her. It wasn't just a memory. It was a promise. That night, as Emily tried to chase away the lingering terror with the mundane glow of her laptop screen, a sound made her freeze. 3 distinct rhythmic knocks echoed from her hotel room door. It was a solid, deliberate sound, impossibly loud in the quiet of the night. Her blood ran cold as she recognized it instantly. It was the exact same sound that had echoed through the vast, empty ballroom of Harrington Hall just before the whispering began. The hall remembered her fear, and it had followed her home.